the front row to me has been a marvellous story from the time Jason Ryan arrived, and he's just slowly built an arsenal without much fuss.
Fords won us that game. I mean, they came back and they won us that game, didn't they?
People say, why did they name Vi as a lock and then play him as a loose forward? Well, he was named a lock because they only had a couple of them, and they had so many loose forwards it would be ridiculous to add another loose forward because the journalists would pick up on it and think, oh, something's wrong here.
DSPN, the Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
Murray Mexted, All Black icon, legendary number 8 for our country, joins us again. And Mex, before we even get into it, and I know you want to talk a lot about the Selectors, and you've got big faith now in the Selectors, and you are starting to believe and understand what they are trying to do. There's a picture over your right shoulder that I'm looking at. Is that you in an All Black jersey? What game is that?
My first test, I think.
Wow, okay.
It's against Wales at Cardiff Arms. It was actually my second test. Murrayfield was my first test. I thought it was very good of them to name the field.
What an honour on debut, eh? You get to run out on your own field. What a crazy stadium that was. I remember in 78, just before we get started, that Grand Slam tour and watching it on TV. They didn't have lights in those days. It was basically dark, wasn't it, at the end of that game? Because the television lights kind of lighted up a bit. But everyone says that when I think Bruce Robertson ran through and scored, well, I think he scored the try to win it. And it was almost pitch black. It was about 4 at that time up in Edinburgh. So it would have been pretty dark.
But it's pretty dark at lunchtime in Edinburgh, when the weather's not so good and it's raining and it's dark all the time,
Let's get into this.
In summer, of course, it's the opposite, eh? In summer, it's late sun.
You're talking about the Selectors and you're talking about the fact that you do have big raps on them now and you're beginning to understand. So explain to us where your head's at with this.
Yeah, well, whenever you have new selectors or new coaches, things change. There's no doubt about it, even if they were assistant coaches previously, because now the head coach gets to say, well, this is the way I see the game. And he has to sell that to his co-coaches. I mean, he's got to have the vision. He has to sell it to his supporting coaches, supporting selectors, and his players so that everyone knows what he's thinking. And, the changeover from Ian Foster to Razor had a lumpy first year, you'd have to say, and the winning ratio dropped considerably. And I think they made a number of fundamental mistakes based on naivety. And that naivety was purely their tendency to pick guys with big hearts that can do the business to get the result and win those hearts and collectively put them together so that they become very, very difficult to beat. Now, that's in essence what I love about rugby. Irrespective of, where you're from, what shape or size you are, to get that team gelling so they all want to do the same thing, get the same result. And I think Razor's great at that. What I didn't know about Razor, and I think we're all, geez, that's no good. I should have turned that off, shouldn't I? What we didn't know about Razor, of course, was that whether he could do the same that he's doing at Super Rugby level, at All Black level.
Sure.
Because it is another step and you're playing against different philosophies in the Northern Hemisphere, completely different referees, completely different, who are trying to stop the game all the time. And we even saw that in the weekend. So what I didn't know is how much he knew about that. And then I thought, oh, well, he was a player and, he probably felt that when he was playing, so it's probably reminding him. And this year was a pivotal year, I reckon, and they look to me like they're on track.
Okay.
So to cut to the chase, that's what I was wanting to summarise a little bit first and then say, yes, I think they're onto it, because the biggest glaring mistake that I thought they made last year was picking guys that maybe couldn't quite take that next step and be as effective as they were at Super Rugby level. And I think they've changed their philosophy on that now. And one area that I'm talking about is the size of the players and the ball winners. And, I've said it so many times, Martin, it's like a squeaky record, but, you've got to win ball to win the game these days. With the way the efficient nature of the game, you've got to have the ball at least 50% of the time. And if you're playing away from home, you really got to have it 55% of the time. So that's my view. I think they're getting there now. I mean, they've picked some big men up front. Now, Holland has made a big difference, and he's been a success.
Straight away, yeah.
And hurrah, and so say all of us. I think it's a fantastic story. And he sounds like a really committed All Black. So I will accept him into the fold, because he really does sound like he understands the whole thing really well and the significance of it. So welcome aboard, Mr. Holland. But there's a few other guys hanging out there too that probably they're going to slowly bring in. And I would say that Lord is one of them, because he's also a very big guy. And, when you talk about big guys, often people say, oh, yeah, but, guys that have got great timing, like Vi, for example, he's got great timing, he's got great spring. Guys like him are always going to get their ball. But really, it's 100% of the ball we're talking about, not the 50% that we throw in. So we throw in 50%, the opposition throw in 50%. You've actually got to have a bit of height, you've got to have longer arms. The longer your arms are, the longer your legs are, and more height you have, the more chance you've got of getting an opposition throw, because it's very hard to time your jump with the opposition throw unless you read exactly what he's doing, where they're throwing the ball. So that's the one that I look at. And the opposite, when we win opposition ball, I say, who won that? Where did they win it from?
Right.
Because that is absolute key. Anyway, I'm pleased to see that we seem to be on the right track there. And so I'm quite excited, actually, about the future. And every time they go to announce the All Black side, I'm looking for why they're doing it and does it marry with what I'm thinking,
Sure.
Which is obviously a bit selfish maybe and a bit naive, but that's the way I am. So
you're a selector like everyone else, mate. So, that's what we all select at home. This weekend, for example, we've got Sititi coming back. Now, I thought it was interesting the way that Razor put this yesterday at the press conference. He was talking about Tamaiti Williams and he was talking about Wallace Sititi, and the words he used were managed minutes. And that suggests to all of us that they are going to play, and he's going to just play them for a certain amount of time. If he wasn't going to play them, I don't think he would have used that phrase managed minutes. So we don't know until Friday, of course, when the team's announced. But let's just assume Sititi comes back in. Well, straight away, you're thinking he plays 8, which pushes Ardi to 7. Are you thinking the same? And then it would be Vi, Sititi, Ardi. There's our loose forward trio, and we're going to then have to look at who's on the bench. Is that what you agree with that?
I do. Razor's up front. That's what I like him. He's not playing any games.
Yeah, good call.
He's pretty clear when he says something. So managed minutes to me. I get your point. The only thing I don't quite know is whether that means he starts or he comes on.
Okay, yeah, right. Okay, yep.
Now, my view on this is possibly premature, but like you said in the last time we did this show, sometimes you just got to grab it by the balls and have a bloody go. And Parker's sitting there. This might be the ideal time. If Sititi's sitting on the bank, might be the ideal time to throw him in and see what happens. So manage minutes. So if he comes through the first 20 minutes, he might stay on for half a game, and then Sititi might come in. That's the sort of thing that I think manage minutes means.
Right.
But he may be thinking the other way. Let's see Sititi. Let's see how he goes. Let's see how the game goes. We know he's a good footballer. We know he's really good with the ball in hand. And I'm not 100% convinced about Sititi yet, and I suppose I'm being small-minded here, which, I'm allowed to be, aren't I? Because, I'm 70 years of age now.
Paid your dues, mate. Of course you have, yep.
But anyway, he hasn't quite convinced me. So I looked up his stats, and I couldn't believe the tackle count. So I'm so encouraged. Because, when you watch TV, it's not like being at the game, and you can see where people are and what they're actually doing. If you want to know whether someone's doing something, you can just watch that person, but you can't do that on TV because there's
they
a
follow the ball
producer
on telly,
calling
what they do. Yeah.
12 different cameras,
sure,
and he's deciding what we want to see, what we're allowed to see. And sometimes those producers are good and sometimes they're not so good. But anyway, directors. Sorry, getting mixed up between producers and directors. Anyway, getting back to it, I think that the front row to me has been a marvellous story from the time Jason Ryan arrived, and he's just slowly built an arsenal without much fuss.
Yeah.
And it's really, really good to see. And he's now got about 6, maybe 8 front row. No, if we're talking front row forwards, I was thinking props, but if we're talking front row forwards, he's probably got about 10 front row forwards now that we're happy with. And when they name the All Black team, any one of those 10s in there, we're okay.
Mm-hmm.
And when you've got that many and you take them away for a long time, you know, you're away over in Argentina for, I don't know how many weeks they are, be well over 3, I would say. You get a chance to play one front row against another front row, so you definitely can have 2 front rows. And that's why the bomb squad started, because guys get used to playing with another guy in the front row, and sometimes the bodies fit better with one guy than another guy. And that's how the bomb squad started in South Africa, and we're all doing it now because of the fatigue factor, particularly if you're at altitude. So I think that it's all looking good in the front row. Where I think they stuffed up was in the second row, and they didn't have enough big bodies. We've been down that track. It's over now.
Yep.
And so they seem to have that lined up. Now the greatest position on the team is the loose forwards. You know, and the beauty about the loose forwards is that they can win a game or lose a game. The bottom line is with the loose forwards. If you get your loose forward combination, and I emphasise combination,
You've always
correct,
yep,
you're bloody hard to beat. So, and I reckon that Razor played as a loose forward, and he was moved around those 3 positions quite regularly. So, if anybody understands it, he does, and that's the reason why they have so many loose forwards in Argentina. And people say, why did they name Vi as a lock and then play him as a loose forward? Well, he was named a lock because they only had a couple of them, and they had so many loose forwards it would be ridiculous to add another loose forward, because the journalists would pick up on it and think, oh, something's wrong here. But what he's doing, he's giving everybody a good lick, a good go at it. You know, and there's guys that are all about the same size. There's about 4 of them. But we can't carry 4 guys that are all the same size. And I'm talking about Karifi, Lakai, Artie Severe. There's a couple of others floating around. Sititi. Well, I said that, didn't I? Sititi,
Samapeni. Yep. Parker.
No, Samapeni's not. Samapeni
He's a taller guy.
He's the Parker side, you know.
Right.
So we've got this new guy, Parker, who we're yet to see at this level, so we've got no idea whether he's any good or not. But he's got the stats. 197 and about 118 or 20 pound. He's bloody good, bloody big. And Vi's been a great success. He is now a blindside flanker. You're not going to see him at lock unless he's covering. He's now a blindside flanker. He proved it to every man and his dog in the first game, but now the last game as well. So I'm so delighted, because he is one guy that both regimes have been pleased to keep. I'm talking about Foster's first and now Razor's. Yep. So he's got to be a great team man. Otherwise it wouldn't be so seamless.
Sure.
So and he's come right at blindside flanker. So isn't that wonderful? So the forward pack, I think they're doing a good job, and they've worked it out.
Yeah, they have. Yeah. Forwards were brilliant. I mean, Forwards won us that game. I mean, they came back and they won us that game, didn't they? The back line is still looking a bit shaky and a bit scratchy. And I put that question to him yesterday. He said it was about passes going behind, the odd one not kind of gelling, and combinations not kind of working just yet. If that's your biggest concern, I think that's a concern that can be figured out. Do you agree that, I mean, once you get your forward pack sorted, once you get those guys winning the ball for you and doing all the things that you need them to do, as we saw with those final drives to win 2 tries and secure that game, it's not an easy fix, of course, the back line, but I think that, once we get the forwards sorted, then you do the back line. I don't know, that's what it looks like he's doing to me.
Oh, I know. You definitely pick your backs on how good your forward pack's going to be. If you pick a forward pack saying you win 40% of possession or 30% of possession, the back line's going to be different if you think our forward's going to win 60%.
Sure.
Or 70. So that's pretty important. So you've got to do first things first in rugby. If you miss out the first 2 steps, 3, 4, and 5 aren't so easy. So I think we're getting there with the forward pack, and we're growing players in certain positions, and it's looking good. and I hope they show us that tomorrow, because to beat Argentina like they did comprehensively up front in Argentina is a hell of an achievement. It really is. And you've seen teams for years, let's discount the last, how many years have Argentina been playing in
2012. They've been there 2012.
Okay, so there's now over a decade. They've been in the game over a decade, and they're absolutely up to that competition. So aren't we lucky? The Southern Hemisphere has a competition that is real, and it's really competitive. Anyone can win. Even the Australians. I don't know if you want to talk about them, but even the Australians.
Well, I want to ask you about their loose forward trio, because their loose forward trio won that battle. And I don't know how many people would have picked that before the game, that those Australian loosies would dominate, especially for as long as they did, effectively an hour, more than an hour after that 22-point lead. So you watching that game, what did you see that they did so well, those Aussie loosies?
Yeah, you gotta understand, Martin, that the way the South Africans use their loose forwards is different to everyone else in the world.
Explain then.
Well, what they want to do is they want to have guys that can support the ball carrier and take it forward all the time. They want to dominate possession, so therefore they've got to have loose forwards with line-out ball-winning skills. Toy's a great example, one of the best in the world, and they've got to have ball. So they've got to the scrum's got to be right, the line-out's got to be right. And if they've got ball and they've got big, strong, loose forwards that want to smash and bash, they don't want to sidestep you. They want to smash and bash you and drive you into the bloody dirt. And if the dirt's at altitude, you soon give up the trip, So they are different. It's a different. Now, they've got one guy who's come from the Sevens team who came on as a sub, as a replacement. Now, he's about as close, I'm just thinking of his name, Quokka Smith. He's about as close as you can get to an open side flanker. And they brought him on. And I'm not quite sure what stage in the game, but I noticed it on TV. All of a sudden he was on the field, and I thought
it was an injury break, wasn't it? Yeah.
It might have been just,
and then he went off again. Yeah.
Early in the second half, maybe. And all of a sudden, I think they realised that they needed to get to that breakdown, because the Aussies were growing, and they didn't grow because they were dominating up front. They grew because they pulled off a couple of great things in the back line. I mean, the first try was a good try, and it was the defensive pattern missed a beat for South Africa, and the second try though was pretty fortuitous, but it lifted the spirits of the Australians, and all of a sudden they thought, we can win this game, and that's when I think they brought on Quokka Smith to try and stifle the Australian ball. Basically, the Australians were all of a sudden getting as much ball as Springboks, and so all of a sudden they had a chance. And their strength, has always been in their back line. And I thought they played really well in the second half, but the first 20 minutes, you'd have to say they were subservient.
It looked like game over, didn't it? It looked like it was going to be 50 points to the Springboks after 22-0 after 17 minutes.
Oh, you just hit me here and it hurts. Can you hit me on this side next time? It looks like they were playing second fiddle, just trying to stop that green machine, that Springbok forward pack. But wow, did they stop them in the end? And then they changed them. So I'm not surprised, because I heard that the Springbok team have announced their team, right? There's 10 changes, is that right?
Yep.
That's incredible. That was predictable. Rusty was going to always do that. After getting beaten at Ellis Park, there was going to be a minimum of 10 people changed. I thought there might be even 12, and he might pick just those three. Anyway, it's great to see, and I think it's fantastic for the global game of rugby, because even though the Northern Hemisphere won't acknowledge that there are some rugby teams in the Southern Hemisphere, even though they won't acknowledge that, it's great for the competition. And we have a competition down here. If Australia's strong, it means we've got a strong All Black team, a strong Australian team, a strong South African team, and now we've got a strong Argentinian team. So we've got a great competition. There's nothing better than having an even competition. And so,
Mix, three of those four teams were World Cups. 3 of them were World Cup semi-finalists in Paris.
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, I don't know what more there's to say than that. We were 3 out of 4, and we were the 2 teams in the final. So,
but a Northern Hemisphere journalist is not going to acknowledge that.
Yeah,
Have
they
you ever
struggle.
seen one?
They struggle
Have
with
you
it,
ever
mate.
seen them acknowledge that or pay credit to the Southern Hemisphere?
They've only
Now
won
and
one
again,
World Cup out of 10, haven't they? That's it. They've only won one. So, you know.
But you tell those. I gave a speech at Twickenham when I was a commentator at one stage prior to the match, and it was just to a supporters group, one of those groups that hangs a tag around their neck, and they've got a lounge to have a few beers, and then they go up into the stand. And the first question I asked was, it was against the All Blacks. It was England versus the All Blacks, and I said, put your hand up if you think England are going to win today. This is how I started the address. Every person in the room, except for two Kiwi guys in the left-hand corner, put their hand up straight away without even hesitating.
Really?
And I might say without even thinking too. We went out there and won the game. I said, how can you say that? How can you put your hand up?
Because
What
they got
type of
confidence.
people
They
are you?
believe, mate. But they believe. They've got their own self-confidence. They believe. And good on them, because that's how you got to approach a game. You got to approach it like you believe you can win it. That's what the
But they
Australians
only
would tell
ever
us.
beaten the All Blacks twice at Twickenham at that stage in the history of rugby. And I told them that.
Okay.
And then
They would have gone down.
And I said, now after hearing that, put your hand up if you think England's going to win. Oh, the hands go up again, So, but anyway, it's nice to have the rivalry.
Isn't it?
It's great that we've got a strong Southern Hemisphere, and long may it continue, because there's a lot less numbers down here. And it's healthy to have another team like Argentina who bring something different. They bring another colourful contribution to being part of a rugby following, either a spectator or a player. Because you go to Argentina, it is a different world. Wow, it's a different world. You go to South Africa, it's a completely different world again. And you go to Australia, you got all those Australians. I mean, it's a similar world to New Zealand, but you've got all those Australians. So they're all, take them or leave them in many situations. But they are their own people in their own way. And what I'm saying is diversity is really colourful in rugby, and it expands your mind and your awareness and your life. I'm absolutely sure about that. So long may it continue, Martin.
DSPN.